Knives Sports Adventures. Today we're going to talk about another flashlight. So this is a Sofirn light. I've been looking lately for some lights that are in the warmer range. I tend to like the high CRI lights. 4000K range is about my favorite tint. And this is a C8 in 4000K, which is a bit unusual. So I wanted to give it a try and tell you guys what I thought of it. So C8s typically are more utility lights. They're kind of a thrower-ish light in a relatively small package. This one is a C8, but it doesn't have the typical C8 reflector. So this one has 3 LEDs. I'll put what they are down in the description below. They are domed LEDs. Since there's 3 of them, you can see the reflector is smaller. It's shallower than it normally is for a C8. So what that does is make this into a very floody light. So it has a lot of output, but not really a lot of throw. 75 yards, you'll see on the beam shots, this is about, really good illumination at that point, but it's about as far as it wants to throw. 100 yards, there's not really a lot of usable light coming out of this C8, but it does have a really fantastic tint. You can see it's got a good heat sink there for heat dissipation. So it does function well as a general purpose kind of walking around light, but it's not a thrower like you'd kind of expect from this shape. The battery is 21700. It does come with a little sleeve for an 18650. One nice thing about these LEDs that are in here is that they run efficiently enough that you can run a protected 18650 cell and it won't trip the protection. So it actually is very efficient even with the output that it has. I want to talk a bit about the user interface because I don't really like it. You might be okay with it, but I didn't really like this one very much. So it's a standard kind of hold to get to the moonlight mode, which is very, very low. I like that because it won't ruin your night vision. You can use it for walking around the house at night and not stepping on Legos, but it won't wake up the people, you're trying to sneak around and not wake up your wife when you're coming back to bed after you watch TV when she was asleep, that sort of thing. Other than that, you kind of push the button to cycle through the modes. You got your moonlight, you got your low, medium, high. When you turn it off, you have to hold press it to turn it off. And then when you turn it back on, it does have memory, but you can still turn it back on to moonlight mode by holding it down and not having to cycle through the modes. So that part is good. What's kind of strange, and this is somewhat common with some lights, is the back switch is just a disconnect. So when I push that switch, it turns it off. When I push it back on, it turns it back on to where I had it before. But when it's off, this switch is non-functional. So this has just disconnected the circuit to allow the switches to work. It doesn't really function as a mode changing switch or anything like that. It's just strictly an on-off. I like that because it's nice for putting the light in a bag or something. You can just one click to disconnect and not worried about it. But I don't like it because I really like this being a turbo switch like some of the other Sofirn lights that I've used, or the Thrunite lights that I've used. That is a nice feature that this light doesn't have. It's also kind of weird to have click to on and then rather than holding to go through your modes like most other lights, hold is off. So if you use multiple lights or lights from other brands, most of them don't function this way, and that does mess with my brain a little bit when I'm using this light. It's the only light you're using. It's not a bad interface. It's a bit annoying to me because I play around with so many flashlights. So kind of annoying user interface, but there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. Just a bit unconventional, although some other lights I've seen do have this. Overall, nice light, very nice tint on the light. It's rare to find something in 4000K. It's not as common of a tint as I would wish it were. Let's go ahead and look at some beam shots so you can get a sense of whether this is a light that you might want. So here are some beam shots for the Sofirn C8F This is the one that they sell in 4000K. So here is turbo. That barn again is about 65 yards away. The tree is there at 50 yards, and the wall there at 40 yards, the corner of the wall there where I'm pointing my light now. So this one is the LH351D LEDs, and there are 3 of them. I really want to mention though that when I was looking up stuff on this light, I've managed to find that there is a ramping UI buried in here. So I can now ramp, there's from there, I can ramp it down, I can ramp it all the way up between turbo and moonlight. So buried in the UI settings on this is actually a really good UI, but it doesn't come that way. It doesn't come set up that way, which is disappointing. Here's my reference light. Again, older version of the Thrunite thrower headlamp. There's the corner of the wall at 40 yards, tree at 50, barn at 65. So you can see the C8F is a bit more floody, a little bit more side, less hot spot and more flood to the beam. It doesn't throw quite as well as my reference light. It's more of a short distance, kind of looking around, walking in enclosed spaces, that sort of thing light, but a really nice, soft, warm light, really kind of good general purpose light. I like the quick lockout. I am going to also compare it here to this Convoy M21E, which I tend to like this light a little bit better. This light has USB charging, which the Sofirn doesn't. There's the bar or the wall at 40, tree at 50, barn at 65 there. So that kind of gives you an idea of where this light is on the continuum. C8F is a decent light. I probably wouldn't pay as much for it as I would for the M21E, just because this is not quite as bright, doesn't throw quite as well. Just overall, there's a little bit better beam on the Convoy. But this is a really good light. If you have an opportunity to get one and you need it quick or something, and this is cheap, there's nothing wrong with this light. I do like that it runs well on even protected 18650s. So that's a definite plus. It comes with the little sleeve to do that. Again, comparing it to the M21E. So decent light, not necessarily exceptional, but it does come in the warmer tints, and it does have the quick lockout button. Hope that review is helpful. Here's the Sofirn again. Like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff, and keep adventuring.